Okay, hi guys, how you doing? Today we're going to start graphing cubic functions. You were able to watch that video hopefully with the little applet that let you see the way the numbers, the A, B, C, and D change the way the graph looked. We're going to start with the parent function. We're going to memorize its pattern, and then we're going to use factoring to help us find zeros. And this is going to be just a straight up practice, so there's not really a lot of notes, it's just a lot of practice. So pick up your pencils and let's get going. Alright, so here's the parent function. F of x is equal to x cubed, or y equals x cubed. So basically what you guys are going to have to do with these is, once you get a cubed function, you can't draw perfect graphs. You can only sketch them out and get pretty close. So what you do is you get your calculator out and you do what you need to do. So I'm going to grab my calculator. And I don't have a graphing calculator or one that I'll do cubes, so I've got to do -2 times -2 times -2. So I'm going to plug a -2 in. So the f of x is equal to -2 cubed. I'm going to do -2 times -2 times, oops, I'm doing 0.2. Those are not negatives, so let me do that again. So, well, -2 times -2 is +4. Times -2 is -8. This doesn't have a negative. How annoying. Hit enter. It's -8. So we have -8, and so our point is -2, -8. We're going to plug in a -1. We can do that one. -1 is 1 times -1 is -1. So we plug in a -1, we get out a -1. We plug in a 0, 0. 1 is going to be 1, and 2 is going to be 8. So we're going to graph these points here. And the thing about cubic functions, if you looked at the applet that I showed you, that video, you'll see that they're very curved. So we're going to go -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, put a point, -1, 1, 0, 0. And then you'll notice that what's doing, it's coming up because it's a positive in front of your x cubed. It's coming up, and it's coming up from -3, -27. So way down here, it's coming up. And it's going to turn, and it's going to do exactly, it's going to mirror and go the opposite direction. 1, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. And it's going to come up this direction. It's going to keep going, and we put arrows on both ends, and that's not a very straight line. But you get the gist. Okay? So that's the parent function, and that's how you graph it. Now we're going to start adding things to it, or multiplying strange things to it. So let's do... here's our parent function from before. What we're going to do is we're going to take our parent function, which I've got memorized, -2, -8, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8. And I'm going to multiply my answer. My x cubed is -8 times 2, so that gives me -16. So you can see I'm going to have to go way down on that one. And I'm going to take the -1 and multiply it times the 2, and that makes -2. The 0 is still going to be there. Notice there's no constant, so that's definitely where it's going to cross your y-axis anyway. Times the f of x is 1 times 2 is 2, so 1, 2 is your new point, and 8 times 2 is 16. So when you do this one, it's left 2 down 16, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 1 down 2, 1 up 2, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and we have another. And you can see that it's not quite as flat. And there you have that graph, okay? So that's what happens when you throw a number greater than 1 on your x cubed. This time what I did was I threw a fraction, and I threw a negative fraction. So let's see what that does. Now our original, remember, we're plugging in a -2. We're going to plug in a -1, a 0, a 1, and a 2. And if you'll recall that our original f of x to our y was -8, what we're going to do is multiply that by a -1/2. So -1/2 of -8 is +4. So we're going to get -2. That's going to make it +4 because it's -8 times -1/2. You see it? All right, and so when we plug in a negative 1, we get out a negative 1. We're going to multiply that times a negative half. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what I was making it happen. And it didn't make sense, sorry. You get it. Negative times negative is positive half. Okay? 0 times 0, negative 0.5. That's still going to be 0, 0. No constant, so 0 coefficient. We're going to do the 1, 1 is the function. We're going to multiply that times a negative half. So that's going to give us 1, and that's going to be negative half, and then 2 times 8, and we're going to multiply that times negative half, and that gives us 2 and negative 4. So I'm hoping that you're seeing that this is a really important thing to memorize the parent function, so you can just multiply the coefficient of that and get your new points really quickly. So negative 2 down 4, up 4, sorry, because this is negative, it's going to be dropping down from this direction. So 2 up 4, 1 up a half, 0, 0, 1 down a half, 2 down 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll see that that's stretching it out quite a bit. And there's a little bit, it flattens out almost right there and then comes down like that. So you'll see that the end behaviors of this are different, okay? With our positive coefficients on our x cubed, it was starting down here, it was coming up, it was hitting the points, and then it was continuing up. This is a negative coefficient, so it's dropping down, and then it hits all our points and continues to drop down. All right, so that's just a couple little things with your parent function, just messing with that a little bit. Let's try doing when we don't just have the parent function. Here's a really cool trick. First of all, once you can start to factor, you need to always look to find the factor so you can find your zero. So I look at this and I think, all right, these have an x in common, which means I can factor out an x squared minus 1. And I'm going to set it equal to 0 because these are our zeros. Remember that this factors x and negative 1 and positive 1. So that gives us x times x minus 1 and x plus 1 all equals 0. Now when you're doing your zeros, you've got to remember that any quantity that contains an x to the first power has to be set equal to 0. So that means x equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. We'll add the 1. So x equals 1. And the x plus 1, this one equals 0. So remember the zeros are always the opposite. X equals negative 1. So that means it's going to cross there, it's going to cross there, and it's going to cross there. X is 0, 1, and negative 1. Those are your zeros. Okay, so we already know that the negative 1 is 0, the 0 is 0, and the 1 is 0. Notice that I've added a couple more points to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do negative 3 cubed. So just have to do it with me. Okay, so let's do negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 equals negative 20. Well, I don't know why it did that. It's negative 27. That was a strange thing for it to happen. That's a negative 27, so our point is negative 3, negative 20. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to finish it out. It's not finished. We have to subtract x from it. So we have to do negative 27 minus negative 3, which is the number we're plugging in for these two here. So it's not negative 27. We've got a double negative here, so we're going to add that, and that's going to make that a negative 24. So negative 3, negative 24. Now we're going to go back and plug in the negative 2 cubed. We already know that negative 2 cubed is negative 8, so that makes it easy. Minus negative 2. Again, we're going to change that. So negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. So negative 2, negative 6. We got our zeros here. And so we'll put those down so we can graph them. And we're going to plug in the 2 now. So we're going to plug in the 2. 2 cubed, we already have that memorized. 2 cubed is 8. So we're going to have 8 minus 2. So 2, 6. Do you see a connection here? And then we'll plug in the 3. What do you think we're going to get out? Right, 24. Okay, so we're going to graph those, and we're going to see a good sketch, not a perfect sketch, but a good sketch. So -3, -24, 2, 4, 6. Well, there's -20 down here, so that would be way at the bottom. And then -2, 2, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you get your 1, 0. And you know it's going to, because it has this is your C term, it's going to come up above just a little bit and cruise down just a little bit. So that's something you've got to remember from the applet that I wanted you to watch first with the little calculator video. Alright, and then it's going to mirror and do the same thing to 2 up 6, and then up 24 way up here. But it does have this little jog in it, and it has that little jog because we have the x to the first power in it, and that's what this number does. This part of the polynomial creates that little wavelength going on there, okay? All right, we'll try another one. All right, now this one, remember what the x squared does? If it's negative, it creates a wave on one side, and if it's positive, so it's going to create a wave. If it's a negative, it creates a wave, I believe, on the negative side. Maybe it's on the positive side, I don't remember, but let's go ahead and do our factoring, because you always want to factor if you can. So we notice if we look at that they have an x squared in common, which leaves us with x minus 1. And we set it equal to 0. We replace the f of x with 0. Okay, so you've set both things equal to 0. X squared equals 0. You take square root of both of those. X equals 0. Or x minus 1 equals 0. Add the 1. Okay, and so x equals 1. So those are zeros. 0 and 1. Those are our zeros. So it's going to cross here, and it's going to cross here. Okay, now we're going to plug in the -3. Okay, so we already remember that, if you recall from the last one, that this is -27, and this is x squared, so this is -3 squared, which is +9. So we have 27 minus -27 minus 9, -27, and it's going to be minus. Here, I'll move this out of the way so we can see the work. I put it down here. So we're going to do -27. This is our x cubed minus our x squared. So 27 minus 9. So that gives us -36. So that's going to go way off our graph. -36. So that's -36. We plug in the 2. And then remember, our 2 cubed is -8. And we're going to subtract 4. So that's going to make -12. So -2, -12. We're going to plug in the -1. So we get -1 minus 1. That gives us a -2. So -1 minus 2. 0, 0. And 0, 1, 0. Oops. And now we're going to plug in the 2. So we're going to do 2 cubed, which is 8, minus 4, which is 4. So it's going to be 2, 4. So you'll notice that these don't match. The -2, -12, and 2, 4. They don't always match, so you can't just always make that assumption. And we got 27 minus 9, and that's 18. So we have 3 and 18. So let's look at these. And notice, again, that I picked 7 points, and I got 2 of my zeros in there. So let me move my calculator out of the way, and let's graph this guy. So -3 and -36 we can't do. It's too far off our graph. But -2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. -1, -2, 0, 0, 1, 1. And that's going to come up a little bit like that because it's coming up. Because it's a positive a on your x cubed. So it's going to come up, and it's just going to come up a little bit. Right, and then 2, 4, and go like that, and it's going to come back up, and then 3, 18, 3, 6, 9, 12, 14, 16. Well, I'm close anyways. I don't think I graphed it exactly right, but there you go. Get your positive x squared or x cubed coming up. Doing a little bit of a squiggle. So the negative x squared pushes it up above the right side of your y-axis here. It just pushes it a little bump up above this side. If it had been a positive x, it would have been a little bump over on this side. All right, let's look at some more. All right, now here we have a, let's put an x on this, and let's take a look at this one. All right, so first we always factor. So we look and see, well, they have an x in common, leaving us with x squared minus 2x minus 3. And then realizing that that is factorable, we have x times x and negative 3 and 1. So we have x times x minus 3, x plus 1 factored out. So get your zeros for that. X equals 0 and 3 and negative 1 when your y is 0. So negative 1 and 3 and 0. So those are your zeros there, there, and there. Now again, remember that this is negative, so that means it's going to come up, go above that a little bit, come down, and then go up again. And let's see what happens when we plug these in. All right, so remember that a negative x cubed to negative 3 cubed is negative 27. I'll write it down here. Negative 27 minus 2 times negative 3 squared, which is 9, minus 3 times negative 3. So we get negative 27, and this is negative 18, and this is positive 9, negative 3 and negative 3. So that gives us negative 45 plus 9 is negative 36. So that's way down there again off our graph. We plug in the 2. And guys, there really is no way around it when we have these types of problems to solve. So we plug in the negative 2. Negative 2 cubed. Oh, I'm sorry, that's negative 8. We already know that. Minus 2 times negative 2 squared is 4. Minus 3 times negative 2. So that's negative 8 minus 8 plus, that's positive 6. So negative 16 plus 6 is negative 10. So negative 2, negative 10. We got 1, negative 1, 0. Our zeros are always easy to find. 0, 0. Obviously, is there no constant, so that's our y-intercept. All right, now we're going to plug in the 1. Okay, so 1 cubed. So 1 cubed is 1, minus 2 times the 1 squared is 1, minus 3 times 1. So we get 1 minus 2 minus 3. So that's negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. So 1, negative 4. Plug in the 2 and we're going to be done. So last one. 2 cubed is 8 minus 2 times x 2 cubed, which is 4. So there's an 8 minus 8. And then minus 3 times 2, which is negative 6. So that's 0, so that gives us a negative 6. So 2, negative 6. And then we have our other 0. So if we go to graph these, we can't graph that one, but the negative 2, 4, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Negative 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, negative 4, 2, negative 6, 3, 0. So what this one's going to do, again, guys, it's coming up because it's got this positive right here. So it's going to come up, and it's got to gently curve at the top just a little bit. And then it's going to come down here and graph this little parabola guy right here. And then it's going to come back up and just keep going. And this should not be a V, it should be a U. You can check with your graphing calculator to see how far off I am, but that's about right. Okay. All right, and last one, the grand finale, is this one. Okay, this is what we've been practicing. This is the kind that'll be on the test, the big benchmark test. So first we have to factor these out. So we're going to find our factors of 8. So we got positive negative 1, positive negative 2, positive negative 4, and positive negative 8. So let's try the 1 and do our coefficients. 1, 6, 6, and negative 8. Bring our 1 down. 1 times 1 is 1, 6 plus 1 is 7, 1 times 7 is 7, 6 plus 7 is 13, and that is not going to give us a remainder. Let's try again. Alright, let's try the negative 1. Alright, negative 1 times, bring the 1 down, it's negative 1, that's 5, that's negative 5, that's 1, and that's negative 1. No remainder, not working for me. It's got to be one of the next ones. It's got to be the 2 or the negative 2. Oh my goodness, let's try the negative 2. So that's negative 2. That gives us 4. That's negative 8. That gives us negative 2. This is positive 4. Doggone it, I picked the wrong 2. One more time, let's try the 2. Oh, I could have swore the 1 was going to work. I probably messed up again. 8. Wow, I had a brain fart. Sorry, guys. That would be 16, and that would be 22. Alright, I'm really having trouble with this here. Going back to probably the 1. I'm going to check a 4. Check the negative 4 here. 1, negative 4, 2, negative 8, negative 2, positive 8, 0. So x minus 4 is one of, or x plus 4, excuse me, is one of my zeros because that's the opposite. Now what I have is x squared plus 2x minus 2 left. And so I have to figure out, I can't factor that. That's not going to work out. So let me check my math here for a second. Alright, so I got to use my quadratic. So the opposite of 2 plus or minus 2 squared, which is 4, minus 4 times 1 times negative 2, all over 2 times 1. So that gives us negative 2 plus or minus 4 minus plus 8, all over 2. So that gives us the square root of 12. So we're going to have to use our calculator. Negative 2 plus the square root of 12 over 2, and negative 2 minus the square root of 12 over 2. So let's grab our calculator, and we'll do square root. I think you have to do 12 square root minus 2 divided by 2. So this is 0.73. I'm just going to leave it at 0.7. So that's one of our zeros, 0.7. And then we're going to do this one. So the square root, so it's going to be the opposite of the square root of 12. So the square root of 12, opposite, I didn't do that right, square root of 12, square root, opposite, minus 2 equals divided by 2, and then we get negative 2.7. So that's our other 0, negative 2.7. So we'll set that one equal to 0. Remember that the quadratic always gives you the 0, so that's x is negative 4. Alright, so what we have here are these crazy ones. Negative 2.7 about right there, 0.7 right there, and negative 4, which is right here. So those are like right up against each other. 2.7, that's 3, that's 4. Let me fix that up there for a second. Negative 2.7 is there. Alright guys, so this one's going to come up, come down, and come up. And basically, we need to see it's going to cross at the y-axis at negative 8. So you'd find your y-intercept at 0, negative 8. So that's where it's going to cross here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you know what this means, that it's going to come up. Because it has the x squared and the x, it's going to go big bump, come down, big bump. Now what we need to do is find the midpoint between these two right here, which is about right here. And let's just plug this number in. Let's see, where would that be about? Let's see, halfway between there and there. That's at 0.7 and that's at negative 2.7. So let's actually see how far apart they are. We're going to add them and cut it in half, and that'll tell us their midpoint. So we'll do 2.7 plus 0.7, and we're going to cut that in half. So if we divide that by 2, that means negative 1 is the midpoint. So if we use negative 1 as our midpoint and plug it in here, it'll give us the parabola shape, so we could use the vertex of this parabola. It's the midpoint between the 2 points is how you find how far down to go. So we would plug that into our equation here. So we're going to plug a negative 1 in. So we're going to go make our t-chart to do our parabola here. That's the point that comes between your two zeros is the midpoint. So it's going to make a perfect little parabola. So we're going to plug a negative 1 in. Right, so negative 1 cubed we know is negative 1, plus 6 times negative 1 squared is positive 1, so that's 6, plus 6 times the negative 1 is negative 6, so minus 8. So the 6 and the negative 6 cancel out, so that gives us negative 9, so negative 9. So it's going to be right there. And so we can pretty much decide that it's going to come up just a little bit right there. Come down here, hit your vertex, and come back up here. Now tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to practice these, on Thursday we'll practice these just over and over and over again using the midpoints and the vertex points and graphing the curves that go between all of your zeros. You find the midpoint, you plug that point into your equation, it'll spit out your y, you plug in your x, it spits out your y. It tells you where to turn and go the other direction, and then you find the midpoint between the next, plug that x into your equation up here, it'll spit out your y again, and then you know exactly what your graph's going to look like, okay? Alright, so I think that's all I got for you today. I know that's a long one, but hopefully you got a lot of good practice, and we'll do specific examples for this one tomorrow with steps so you can get a good grade on the test. Have a good one, guys.